Today, folks, we have the privilege of sitting down with one of the most influential people in reality television. His shows have personally given me so much joy since the date of March 21st, 2006, when The Real Housewives of Orange County premiered. He is the powerhouse producer behind iconic shows like Vanderpump Rules, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, OC, Denise Richards and Her Wild Things, and 48 other shows throughout his career. Our guest has created the zeitgeist and pushed the art form of reality television further and further, from his beginnings at Evolution Media to launching his very own production company, 32 Flavors Entertainment, which has produced The Valley, which we are celebrating the season 2 premiere of today. And if that wasn't enough, he is now hosting and producing podcasts, hosting the Hot Mic podcast, which really rubs me raw because this is actually a damn good podcast. He's had amazing interviews with Jax Taylor, Kyle Richards, and this week's episode with Lisa Vanderpump. Today, folks, we welcome one of my dream guests, Alex Baskin.
Oh, man, thank you for having me. I cannot live up to that billing.
No, you already have. No, I don't know how to really say this to you. And it feels like, I don't know if you ever watched SNL, but there was a Chris Farley show sketch where he would talk to people like Paul McCartney. He'd be like, do you remember the time? And I feel like that I've had so many personal moments through your shows.
Oh, I appreciate that, and thank you for the support of the shows. And I think the shows really benefit from the constant conversation about them.
But also, does it bother you, the constant conversation? I always think about how we view these shows. Half of the people view them completely as it is. Like, they don't question it. And then like 30% like me, I get emotional about it, but I also make fun of it to a degree. And then 20% is in the ether.
I think that it's the highest form of investment in them. I think to turn them over, I think to make fun of them, I think to talk about them endlessly. I think that that's really important for them because I think it makes them conversation points.
Yeah, I mean, reality television is so special in the sense that I always say it depends on second screen technology. Yeah. It depends on us making the memes, doing the podcasts, fighting back and forth on Threads or Twitter. And that's really interesting because not a lot of other art forms have that.
No, that's right. It's a constant conversation, and I think they're very dependent on that relevancy throughout. And I think for us, the battle is to make sure that the casts aren't catering to social media.
And you can feel it, right?
Oh, my God. Well, you can feel the inauthenticity right away.
Yeah, I mean, how do you talk somebody down off of, you launched The Valley last season, and it was so great because so many people didn't believe in The Valley.
Yeah.
And it was so good. Like, I remember getting the screener and going, this is actually really good, and watching people catch up to how good that show is.
That's been our pep talk, too, in prepping the next season of Vanderpump Rules, because we as a production take very seriously the challenge that, people broadly are going to say, look, the first 11 seasons were iconic. You can't do that again. And we're out to prove that we can. And it was the same thing with The Valley. People didn't want to believe in it at first. And they didn't love the first episode or the initial promo that we put out. And then they were hooked on it when they saw that it was messy and fun and it was a great cast and they were very real. They were in.
Well, I mean, speaking of Vanderpump Rules, you brought that up. Little Birdie told me that you are close to production or we will be starting Vanderpump Rules soon. How much pressure do you feel about that? Because legitimately, it has meant so much to so many people, and we are so picky and particular. How hard is that for you? You have a whole new cast who you have to literally go, don't play to the cameras. Don't think about the memes people are going to make. Just be you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to teach them all over again. But what I would say is we feel all the pressure and none of it. So it was absolutely the right decision to move forward with a new cast because the original cast had told so many amazing stories and they were ready to move on. And so I think that's really exciting. But you're right.
But were you ready to move on?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. But I don't have any pang of regret whatsoever. And, we didn't necessarily get to choose when that would happen, so to speak, in the sense that you would want a show to run forever, theoretically. But we really looked at each other and thought, we can't make a show that is the quality of the show that we have been making. And it wouldn't have been authentic at that point because the relationships were so splintered and everyone had moved on in life. And that wasn't a show. It's not a construct, right? That is a friend group. And so you can't just plug in 2 other archetypes and keep it going. So I think at that point, you have to know when to leave the party.
But that's why it's so kind of amazing that The Valley exists.
Yes.
Because it's like the continuing adventures of.
I was really excited about that in the first place, and it was, sort of my thinking in developing it is that it was this off-ramp for some Vanderpump Rules cast that had moved on to a different phase of their life. And then I think the other magic of that show is the new group sprinkled in, all of whom were really friends with our existing group. I mean, this was the show we pitched exactly with this cast intact, and then we went and made it. And so it was exciting.
Do you know when you're making a show that this is, I mean, at this point you have to know like, oh, this is working, this feels good.
Yeah, I mean, it is, there's definitely the feeling, on the other hand, where you mentioned that I've made a lot of shows, and it's funny, whenever people, refer to the successful shows I've done and say, you just make successful shows. I'm like, no, I don't, because I will name you my other shows, and you either haven't heard of them or you would say, that show sucks.
Come on. What did it just be with Beth? What was the Beth? The Big Shot.
The Big Shot. Yeah, right. Prom Queens on Lifetime. You're not talking about that. So you definitely have a sense of it. And there's those essential ingredients. I always say, like, producers can screw up a show that otherwise have the ingredients, but you cannot create something out of whole cloth. And it takes a really great committed cast and a subject matter the audience is interested in, and then all of that alchemy in order to make a great show. And you do know when you have it, and it's a great feeling.
Have you always been somebody that has trusted your instincts and your gut?
Yes. Yeah, and it's for better or worse, I'm willing to make mistakes based on what I've believed and where my instincts have led me. But I think the really frustrating thing, I think, right, for all of us in life, but certainly professionally, is if I do something that I never really believed in. And then it's hard to live with because I shouldn't have done it in the first place. And so if I passionately believe in a show, then I know how to make it, I see what it can be, and I can sort of see what the end game is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting over the years. I mean, which is so wild, even for you, I have to imagine that the audience, we know you. We know Alex Baskin. We know producer Jeremiah. We know, we start knowing all of these things, which on one hand must be flattering, but on another hand must be so flipping annoying because we should be focusing on Jax and Brittany and Dodie. And instead we're like, did Jeremiah get too close to the cast in season 10? Isn't that wild?
It's so funny. I mean, it still cuts against everything that I learned when I was training as an executive and as a producer to do press. And I say this, and there's the irony, of having a conversation about this, right? So now at this point, I'm out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes that you were talking before sort of about the ecosystem around the shows. Sometimes the audience can overthink them and can chop them up in a million different ways. And so
I don't know what he's talking about, you guys, at all. I am not going home tonight and doing a 3-hour recap on Beverly Hills, whatever you think.
Some people. Yeah. So I think that, I think it's true. And sometimes I sort of, want to say, just enjoy the show for what it is and just have fun with it. But I don't think that you get it both ways. And I do think that passionate, invested interest, I think, is the fuel behind the shows.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's just so funny to be a fan of it since day one. And which, by the way, this fact that just blows my mind was that the day that OC premiered was the day that Twitter premiered.
Oh, wow.
And to think about how much social media has affected good and bad of this show is that these people not only battle each other on the shows, but they're battling now on a keyboard. And now every reunion, it comes up at some point. Or Andy has to say, we warned people going in that it's going to be really intense. And we as an audience don't really take into account that intensity.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I've seen social media's impact on the shows. I mean, in the early days of Orange County when Twitter was in its infancy, and I didn't know the same date of it all. But I think that the experience of being on the show was one thing. And then, and by the way, in those early days, our biggest issues were the Bravo blogs.
I know. Because, which, by the way, Atlanta still keeps talking about the blogs. And I'm like, where are the blogs? Do they mean podcast? What do they mean by blogs these days?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah, so funny. So that radically changed the experience of doing shows, and it's very hard to tune out that noise. We totally understand that, but that's the exercise of it. I mean, I've long thought if you could make many seasons of the show at once and bank them and then release them, you would have a very different show than you do by making them sequentially.
Oh my God, I always like that. It was like during the Scandival period, I was just like, keep rolling, just keep rolling. Don't give them that break. And I remember reading interviews with you of like, we do need time to decompress.
We had to.
I mean, obviously, it was so many things. I've never experienced as an audience member, which, by the way, how sick of the term Scandival are you?
So I first rebelled against it, and I never wanted to use it, and I never wanted it to stick. And then it became so ubiquitous that it was a shorthand that I now use it as well.
Oh, yeah.
But incredibly sick of it. Like, I don't think it's that clever. It's just annoying to me at this point.
No, I mean, literally, it's like such in the public lexicon, which once again, that's kind of an amazing thing. But it's like, oh, we just celebrated the 2-year anniversary of Scandival. Like, it's like a birthday or something. Okay, to take it all the way back, is it true that you started off your career with a summer internship at MTV during high school?
I did. So that was really formative for me. I remembered that when I did that, and I just couldn't believe that this was an actual job.
So, I mean, how does that even, you're in high school, you are a fan of television, right?
Yeah, so it was the summer after my senior year of high school. And so I obtained an internship, and I had there was a sort of a mentor figure, at least he became one, at MTV, who started including me in their development meetings. And so one day I put together a project and I pitched it to him. And he bought it.
What was it?
And so it was a project about a youth peer crisis counseling hotline in LA because Loveline was sort of on the wane. And so they were looking for a replacement for it. And I'm like, I think I have it. So I dressed up like kind of nice for my pitch that day, which is ridiculous.
You're 18 years old.
Yes, yeah, totally. So, I wanted to look the part. And so they bought it. And they paired me with a production company to make it. And through that process, I met Doug Ross at Evolution because it was one of the companies that I met with. And then the network sort of, shunted me in a different direction. But Doug and I stayed in contact. He had sort of said to me, like, I see something in you, kid. And if you ever, need a job, want a job, look me up. So 7 years later, I had gone to law school. And I realized I didn't want to be an attorney, but I had to work. So I reached out to Doug out of the blue, and I said...
There's a 7-year period of time where you had pitched a show, and then were like, I'm going to law school.
Yeah, so I did. So I got my college degree, and then went to law school, and it's not what I wanted to do with my life. So I reached out to Doug and I said, do you remember me from all those years ago? And he said, I do. And I said, well, I'm about to have to take a job as an attorney. Do you have any interest in hiring me, like you said 7 years ago? And he said, I do. And so I went to Evolution.
He didn't say, kid, maybe the attorney thing is the way to go. Like he was like, come to reality television.
Imagine how disappointed my parents were.
I mean, that's a wild start. But I was trying to like think about you back then of what were the shows that moved you, or were you obsessed with TV? I mean, obviously TV is very different then than it is now. What were you obsessed with? What did you enjoy back then?
Well, part of what excited me about the MTV experience was that was when that network was at the center of pop culture. And so that was, their heyday. So that was obviously The Real World and The Osbournes and all of it, and everything to Jackass and all their experimental shows. And so to me, what excited me about reality TV wasn't just that it was a laboratory of human behavior, but also that the time between ideating something and getting it to air was truncated compared to scripted, which was, laborious and had seasons and all of that stuff. My dad was a writer, and so, as he would joke, I was born during pilot season, and so it was really exciting, and it was also booming because the expansion of cable meant that there was the need for economical programming, which is what the appeal to reality. And so that was really fun for me. And so I really benefited from being in the right place at the right time and meeting the right people. And that's sort of, always the story of anyone in the creative business.
Did you have that internal feeling that once you got started with Mr. Ross that this is the right place to be? Like, were there moments, was there a day on set that stuck out to you of like, this is really exciting?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it right away, and Doug was incredibly gracious in sort of putting me in meetings I had no business being in, and I found that I was good at it. And there had not been that many things, in life that I thought that I was a natural for. And so maybe I benefited from not having a great option set. But it really took right away. And, suddenly I looked up and I was doing it.
Yeah.
And that just was my career, and I didn't have any doubt about it.
God, in a sliding doors moment, you could have been like representing R. Kelly or something like that as a lawyer. I mean, like, it's so interesting, these little things that happen in life. If you go one direction, we don't get any of these shows.
And Doug easily could have, just deleted my email. And
Yeah,
and
or
that
didn't
would've
even
been-
see your email.
Yes, right. Like, but I think about that all of the time. It's funny. I can't remember where I was on a panel for, and someone had asked me about my career path, and so I told that story. And then at BravoCon, someone went up to me and said, I listened to your panel, and because of you, I dropped out of law school. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't want that responsibility.
I postponed having a family for you.
Glad I inspired you, but
So, I mean, so and by the way, when these shows, and especially the Housewives franchise, these things are blowing up. Like, I remember how excited I was to watch these shows. Like, and I felt like a unicorn watching them, because I'm here, like, I'm some straight dude that's like, it's not for me typically, but I was so attached to them at such an early age. But I was really reticent against Vanderpump Rules. Because, and by the way, still angry at that Beverly Hills into Vanderpump, thinking I was getting a 2-hour
that kidnapping
Beverly Hills episode, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to see Sheena. I don't want to see that at all. They did the same thing later with Summer House and Vanderpump, and I hated that so much. And so I didn't watch Vanderpump for the first 2 seasons.
Oh, wow.
And then I was really stubborn about it. And then everybody was saying how amazing. I started at season 3, went back, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, you don't get a first season like you got on Vanderpump Rules. Like, that is shocking. That's lightning in a bottle, what you were able to capture.
We knew we had it right away. I mean, that group was everything that you're always seeking. So they are all incredibly unique and dynamic, and they were so tied together, and they live their lives.
Real relationships.
Yes, and that is, I know we say this all the time to the point where it sounds like such a cliche, but it's because it is the fundamental ingredient, and you just can't fake that. And so when we made the presentation for Vanderpump Rules, Stassi had held what she wanted to say to Sheena for months, and saying stuff, and she'd said to me, "This is what I'm going to say to her," and she held it, and then she said it to her, and we ended up using that, in the show itself.
Yeah.
And so there was not any question, that was undeniable. I think the other thing that worked about that was it was a smart kind of spinoff, because it didn't in any way detract from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because Lisa Vanderpump existed in both spheres differently. And so we could never feature that in Beverly Hills because we didn't have the time, and it wouldn't have made any sense.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel like it was too much. It felt like, they both sort of enhanced each other. And then the crossover was brilliant. I mean, we knew we had that situation, which we discovered
With Brandy.
really inadvertently and people won't believe it, it's the truth, at the season 2 finale for Beverly Hills, and we're doing the launch of Sir Lounge. Trust me, if we had known that, we would have covered it better than we would have had. We genuinely didn't. And so then Dave Serwaka at Bravo had the brilliant idea to do the seamless crossover. I wish I could tell you it was my idea. It was not.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, there was 100% audience retention into the second hour.
And by the way, audience retention, you guys, is just meaning they kept their core audience from the first hour of television. Like right now, Denise Richards and Her Wild Things is right after Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So you're hoping to retain that audience from that first hour to get them to try this new thing.
It's a really big metric, and it was even more so then because that was where people watch television live much more than they do now.
Yeah, streaming's messed it all up.
Completely. So then that was a really important indicator, and usually if you can get to something like, even 70%, that's considered huge. We were at 100% because what, are you going to stop watching them?
I watched it one time and then I saw, because I was so angry. No, but it is so funny. But then to look now where we were almost waiting for that connector scene between Vanderpump Rules and the Valley. I mean, I did a whole episode on what the connector scene will be. Will it be Jax yelling at Tom and then driving over to the Valley? Like, we all were speculating.
We spent a lot of time figuring out what it was going to be, and I kept saying the same thing, which is we're not going to know until pretty close to when we actually have to shoot it, because the relationships were shifting all of the time. So it was like, oh, this person isn't talking to this person, so we can't shoot this, or whatever. So, it ended up being what it was. And I thought the fun of it wasn't just that the tables had turned in some way, but then also it was great to see Jax obviously travel back from West Hollywood to the Valley.
Exactly,
and then we're in, right?
Well, and it's also interesting because you have that moment of tables have turned, but the audience, if you know Jax Taylor, were like, well, the tables will eventually turn again, And how hard is that for you? Because I made notes again and again, is that what I walk away from when I watch the shows, and I think a lot of people will argue with me, is that you truly do care about these people.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've heard it in your interviews on the Hot Mic podcast, and then I've seen you talk about it, where I don't think it's bullshit. I think you genuinely care, which, how hard is that though? Because there is commerce involved and tragedy and all these things that we have come to expect from these shows. How do you manage those two things?
Well, I think that you just sort of never have to. I think that you have to maintain your humanity. I don't think that you can ever be too removed from the people that are in the show or the people that are making the show, so that you see everyone as an object to move around. But it is really tough because sometimes those things can be at tension, because on the one hand, you want to cover something. And by the way, our presence in the first place impacts the very thing that we're covering, right? So we're documenting it. But as much as I would love to believe that real life just plays out in the same way, obviously the attention that we bring to it, or that other media brings to it, it isn't just that we're covering it, but the fact that, the things that occur between the cast are a news story changes them. So I think it can be tough. But I really tried to be guided by being a decent human being and by caring about everyone. And I think that sort of helps. And I think, by and large, the cast knows that. There are definitely tough moments, and there are moments when they would rather not be a part of the show. I mean, we say this, everyone wants to be on a great show, but not everyone wants to make one. And
the cast of Vanderpump Rule, they talk about it like they're serving in the army. They're like, we got to get in there. Like Sandoval did New York Times interviews going like, no, I've got to show everything. Like they especially, like I've just talked to Schwartz last week and he was just like, no, that's the gig. We show everything.
And they hold each other accountable. So I think that if you have the right group and they have the right relationships, then it isn't betraying each other to call each other out and to make sure that your fellow castmates are actually being real and putting it all out there. Like they see that as the ultimate friendship. And that is why they hate and they expel someone who comes into the group and thinks they can get away with doing less.
Yes. No, it really is. It's like they have like these badges of courage that they wear now and they'll show off. And so it's interesting, Jack's be like, I've been around these blocks forever and I'll show you the ropes, it works on one level comedically and then it works on another level dramatically. And going into season 2 of The Valley, this is what I know I'm insane, Alex, but this is what I was worried about from the jump. I said, this guy signs up to do this show. He's going to ruin his life in a weird way. It's going to destroy this maybe beautiful marriage that he always talks about. And sure enough, all of this happens. And you're there with the cameras at the end. By the way, Brittany had a fantastic scene in that final episode of the first season. And we pick back up this season in the first 10 minutes. Jax is bawling. In this will come out after the episode. There's a bawling moment, and you're just like, oh my God, dude. And then if you pair that with the Hot Mic podcast, the 2 interviews, which by the way, I hope you intercut some pieces of that interview into the season. Like, did you ever, it's a good idea, but did you ever worry of like, man, this might not be good, Jax, for you long term?
Well, I think a couple things. I think going into season 1, I certainly had that concern, but Jax and Brittany know what they're signing up for.
At that point,
and so there is an assumption of the risk. And I think that we have a responsibility, to be honest and to be honorable, and to make sure that the casts know. I always say it's my job to talk people out of it if they don't want to do it. But once they know what the deal is, and certainly veterans like them know that, then we take them as they come. And so I don't think that the shows break up strong, healthy marriages. I think that sometimes they hasten the end of marriages that not all are bad, but that clearly have their fault lines.
Yeah.
But I think that's life. I think that happens, and also I would say that it's incumbent on anyone involved to take a step away from the show if that's what they think they need to do as well.
Completely.
And then in the meantime, we're documenting it. And so it is so real and raw. Wait until you see episode 2.
Oh, well, by the way, and I never know, Jax, just because I've always been presented on TV. I was shooting that spot on the Valley promo last week, and Jax was like, just wait till you see episode 2. And I was like, but he said he didn't even see episode 1. He said somebody told him what happened. And I was like, how do you know what is episode 2 if you don't even know what's episode 1? Like, I was so confused, and I couldn't tell if that was just a Jaxism or if that, episode 2 truly is insane. And you're saying it is.
Well, he hasn't seen it, but he happens to be right. It is. It's one of the most intense episodes that we've ever produced. And because we capture everything as it's happening. So it isn't after the fact. We're not talking about it. We're not reliving it. We are in
it.
the moment.
Are you proud of it?
I am proud of it.
Do you take pride in this work? I mean, like, because I take pride in doing what I do about this work. But like, do you have moments, or even like that Scandival episode? I mean, the way you guys rode that wave beautifully. I mean, I've never seen a delicate balance like that to that final Scandival episode with cameras being picked back up, going into the reunion. I mean, you guys did something that nobody else has ever done before.
I am proud of it because it's incredibly hard to do, and it's fun to be a part of teams that are so talented and so in sync that we can pull off something that only we know was a major feat. So that's fun. And I think to a certain extent, I think any of us in this business have some version of an ego because we like doing something in which our names are flashed across the screen and people watch it. So there's an element of that too.
Is there a third season? Will it be Alex Baskin's The Valley?
No one would watch that. But I think that's fun of it. And I like doing shows that people watch and talk about. I think that's really fun.
Because you also know what it's like to be a part of shows that nobody talks about.
Yeah, completely. And you work just as hard. And they don't care. People don't really care. They're not part of the cultural conversation. And especially with streaming these days, they can feel like they come and go. So it's really fun to be, a part of the conversation.
Well, I was talking about that in terms of The White Lotus, was like how much I appreciated, even if you didn't like this season, I happen to love it. But even if you didn't, I love that it was week by week.
Yes.
I love that Vanderpump, even through the Scandival era, I had to wait to the next week to see that. And I thought about it. And once they're like, 2 days away, 1 day, you get excited about these things. And sometimes when it's all released at once, there's a toilet paper kind of quality to it where it's so disposable. And that's why it's like, where are we headed with streaming? And do you ever wonder about that yourself in regards, you guys have this excellent relationship with Peacock, and I believe you are one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing on Peacock. How has that changed reality television and your job?
Yeah, I mean, I think it changes it a lot. I think that the consumer experience is really different. And I'm with you. I still favor the old-fashioned unspooling it one at a time and enjoying it across a period of time. But we do have to think about how we produce it if it's something that can be binged. It's a completely different story. So I'm partial to the way that we've historically done it. I think it depends on the show. So I do think that the serialized docu-soaps, I think, play out really nicely in this fashion. But look, shows like Selling Sunset have done really well.
They've done really well, and I've watched all of those. But at the same time, I couldn't tell you what happened last season on Selling Sunset.
Right.
But I watched it all in the first week.
Yeah.
But that's the thing but I can tell you what happened last season of The Valley or last season of Beverly Hills. And there is something that I was really proud of like I worked on it. But the Scandival thing was how many new people it brought into the fold.
Oh, we love that.
And I worry about that all the time with Bravo.
Yes. Oh, no, completely. And Scandival also attracted younger people. So it was people who, watch the show on TikTok, which is wild to me.
I know. No, they'll put up whole like 5-minute scenes on TikTok.
So funny.
I mean, but it really is that kind of thing where you're proud of look at these kids appreciating the thing that you appreciated.
It makes me feel really old though too, because I think that even though that cast is roughly the age that I am, I still think of them as young because they were once upon a time. And so it's funny to me.
Isn't there a bit of Arrested Development with reality stars where Jax will always remain the age that he was in 2013?
Yes.
Because he's cemented. And even as much as you want to get away from that, Stassi's done such a good job at her career outside of this, but they'll always be there in 2013 to so many of us and to themselves in a way as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I know. And then you look up and you're like, wait a minute, it has been a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I want to move to Beverly Hills really quickly here. And I guess the big question is, everybody wants to know this, does Sutton Strack really live on a main road? We had Dorit. I mean, Dorit actually... I was so proud of Dorit at the beginning of this season. It really was. Everybody keeps talking about the iconic cigarette smoking scene because I'm sure you put cameras in the car. And it was like this woman on the verge kind of vibe that we had not seen. And you were now at the tail end of this season. And I have to say, the 2 parts of the reunion I've seen so far, I've enjoyed more than episodes of the actual season.
People have been saying that.
I like when they're all in, like, we can't escape.
Yeah.
I mean, but we have to confront certain issues, and there is this kind of dramatic tension that I really appreciate. But can you take the audience through, after this 3rd episode airs, what do you and your team do? Do you sit down at a meeting? Do you go, okay, what worked this season and what didn't work?
Yeah, I mean, we have a series of conversations with the network. I shouldn't even say a series of it's an ongoing conversation with the network. And so it's sort of exchanging ideas about what we think worked and what we think we might be able to do better. We get in research. We're not prisoners to the research, but sometimes it can be directional.
And that's the Q score and all of that stuff?
Not really that. Like, that is, I wish it were that simple, but it's more, it's just sort of feedback. It's kind of what interested the audience and what didn't. And again, it isn't to be taken literally, because I think you take the shows as they come, and things happen in real life, but it's just, just notes for us and just input. And then we have holistic conversations about where we want to go from here. And it's an analysis of how the group fits together. And at that point, we have casting coming in. And so, the sort of conversation about the holdovers and about the new ones they're really one and the same, because you don't make a decision in either direction without having the conversation about where the cast is on the whole.
Are these passionate conversations?
They can be.
Do you have people that work for you that are like, I am fighting for Crystal Minkoff. I am in that. Does it get heated?
We had a producer at one point who brought us into one of the conference rooms and made a list of. It was like he was prosecuting a case. So to the direction that he wanted to take the show. So thank you so much for Exhibit A. But I think that's the fun of it, and it's really smart people who don't always agree. It's a spirited conversation. It's a conversation not just about each person individually, but about the dynamics of the group. And I think reasonable minds can differ. And then out of that imperfect but necessary process, then we kind of emerge with marching orders for the next season.
And this is, I always think of it now also in the way of, like, in a sense, you're Lorne Michaels. You are a queen maker in a lot of ways, not a king maker, a queen maker. And there are so many people that, at this time of year after the reunions, does your phone start blowing up with like Carlton and like past cast members of like, hey, Al, just thinking about you? Like, it seems like people get off these shows and then they spend a lifetime trying to get back on these shows. Like, do you have to go through like a whining and dining of people trying to impress you at this point?
There can be some of that, and so I don't think, I think that a lot of the outreach is not coincidental. Yeah. You should hear from them. It's the time
Hi,
of year.
Hi, Camille. Hi. Yeah.
No, that's pretty funny to me. I think there's a life cycle to being on the show. I think to your point that I think when most of the cast leaves the show, at that point they have to get over it, and so they probably are not happy with the show at that point. And then those feelings soften, and they come to miss it, because for all of the challenges of being on the show and all of the things that are hard, it's really fun. And it's hard to have something like that no longer exist in your life. And so then I think, some of them at least can pine away for doing it again.
Were you on the fence with Bose at all? Because I think she had a fantastic first season, and I'm so excited to see where she goes next season. Was that something that was like, does this fit? Does that not fit for her in particular?
I loved her right away. So we saw her casting tape and brought her in for a meeting right after that, because I was like, I want to see what this is like in person. And my first question to her was, I felt like, Leno with Hugh Grant. So I was like,
what the hell were you thinking?
I said, why the hell do you want to be on the show?
Yeah, like you work for Netflix. What are you talking about? Yeah.
And it was great. I thought, her answer was great. And her answer was basically, look, I've been a corporate person my entire career, and I've done well for myself, and now I'm a free agent. I do whatever I want, and this is what I want to do. And she was interested in branding herself, but not in an annoying way. I didn't think in a self-conscious way. I thought that, it didn't compromise her being a real person. And so I was all in on her.
Yeah, I mean, I put her in like the pole position of what I always call the reliable narrator. Is you need one of those each show, and I kind of almost had Crystal in that spot last time, but I thought Bose, and it's going to be interesting because you then see, you know, either the second season they have a slump or they believe their own press, and it changes them in a lot of ways. And I'm so curious to see where we go from. But I'm curious about the whole thing. I mean, the second part of the reunion was so fascinating, and there's a little bit of Groundhog's Day because we have similar conversations with Kyle Richards each year. She is the OG. She is the reason why this show exists in so many ways for 14 years. I desperately love Kyle Richards, but at the same time, I sometimes get worried that, like, I mean, no, I'm not. Do you ever get worried about Kyle continuing on with the show? Because I just want her to be happy. I don't care who she's with. I don't care what. But, like, she does collect a paycheck for talking about her life, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that all can be hard to reconcile. And I want her to get to a place where I want her to be happy more than anything. And my hope would be that that's in doing the show. But if that isn't right for her, then she's had an extraordinary run. Hopefully there's a lot left.
Would you try to convince her to stay if she wanted to leave?
I would. I've told her that I want her to stay as long as she wants to stay, but I think she alone can determine that, and that isn't, you know, at all a lack of passion. I would love for her to stay. I think she's.
Can we call her right now and find out where she's at?
Should we put her on the phone? Yeah. No, it's like,
hey, Kyle.
Yeah. No, I think that I've really learned not to force things, and so I can make that passionate case. But in the end, to your point, you know, she knows what the commitment is to the show, and I think she has to decide whether it's compatible for her life right now and whether it's what she wants to do or not.
Yeah, you know. And will you be honest about this? Is that
no? I'm just kidding.
Thank you for being honest. No, I've been stressed about this interview for weeks with you. I'm like, oh my god, Alex is coming. How stressed are you on a day-to-day level? Because I don't understand how you deal with the Housewives or the Vanderpumpers or the Valleys, the public reaction, ratings, streaming services, people wanting a piece of your time, including myself. Are you just like completely zen all the time, or are you like, do you get moments where you lose it almost?
I was on the verge today because I had just
coming here.
No, this is actually the fun part of the day because I love the shows and I like talking about them, you know, and I'm passionate about them. But I had way too much to do, and I had several serious situations that I was dealing with, and not the ones that people necessarily would think, because a lot of things happen that don't make the news. And I just didn't have enough time, and so that was really frustrating. And the number of urgent texts or calls that I got far outstripped my ability to handle all of them. So that's tough because my time is divided into a lot of different elements. So part of it is running a company, and you know, that takes a certain commitment. There is overseeing all of the shows and all that entails, and so that is working with each of the productions. That's everybody that is in the shows. That's the networks. There's everything that is in development, which is taking pitches. It's putting together pitches. It's doing deals. It's managing all of those projects. I don't even know how many, a lot of projects that are set up at networks.
Yeah.
So all of that takes time. And sometimes there is no way around the mountain of work other than the time that it takes to do it. So it can be very stressful. And there definitely are moments where I wish that I could move in an orderly fashion, and the shows themselves would just calm down for a second.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, is that the shows can't calm down.
They can't,
and that's what makes the show succeed, is when they don't calm. Like, listen, I'm still angry at you for announcing the Vanderpump Rules news right at Thanksgiving. That I was gonna I was like, yeah, I was like, the day or two before Thanksgiving, I'm having to do like a special episode. People asking what I thought. Like, this was crazy, the news when it was released.
Yeah, and if you even think about take that news. That entails so many conversations that we'd had before then. And so even just that one announcement that happened then, right, is that's hours upon hours upon hours upon hours to get there. So
production, cast members, people that have had this as their livelihood.
How are you going to roll it out? Are you going to whatever, and making sure the right people know at the right time. And I remember reading one of the tabloid stories said that the cast was upset that we told them and then announced it. But here's the reality. You have to do it that way because we absolutely wanted to make sure that everybody knew before it was announced. And it's important we'd signaled, to the extent that we knew, just sort of letting people know, live your life or free up for something else, or letting the crew know they should take other jobs. But you can't tell anyone until right before because it'll leak. So there's all of those considerations that go into everything. And so it is a lot. It is exhausting, and that's not a, poor me, sad song.
No,
but it's a lot.
But that's what I think about a lot of, like, you're dealing with 80 different personalities just on the shows themselves, on top of everybody actually working behind the scenes that people don't realize. Speaking of things leaking, and this is something that I really hate these, and I try not to participate in them. Maybe I did like my first year or two doing this, but then I was like, was the Garcelle of it all. Was that we had Garcelle leave. She starts off the reunion saying, hey, we're all going to get a group picture finally at the end of this. And we don't have that moment, obviously. And then she revealed she is not coming back. And people were like, well, she was fired. She was fired. They knew she wasn't coming back. And can you clear that up at all?
Let me set the record very straight. She chose to leave. And we completely respect that. She had a great 5-year run. And she decided going forward that she wants to take her life in a different direction for now. The door is open potentially to her coming back. We'll sort of see where we are, but we have total respect and admiration for her, and understood that she wanted to leave and support her.
But it didn't get even to that point where you were discussing casting for the next season.
No. Well, we were sort of already in the process of casting for the next season, just because we always are around that time. It's just the way the calendar lines up. But that didn't impact, the way that we handled casting at all.
Yeah. And then OC had one of the best seasons it ever. Like last season was one of the, really. And, I've always been highly critical of Tamra, but I have to say, part of my enjoyment of the show is being angry at somebody. That's a weird thing to admit. And I thought, wow. And Alexis Bellino, I was like, wow, she tied herself to John Jansen. And in some ways that I don't think really helped her. But I was so excited about how good of a season it was. And then we have rumors that Tamra left. We had this cast trip. Tamra left. I believe she is back. Everything is good. I even sent a positive message to Tamra, like, hang in there. Like, I want her on the show, even if I dislike some of the way she moves. Was that another stressor for you this year?
All of it is. It's all developing in the moment, and you don't know the end of it. And that makes it difficult. And you're kind of trying to maintain whatever control that you can over it. OC has been a pretty wild season. And
the one that is currently shooting.
The one that is currently shooting. And we're still very much in the midst of it. And so that was the source of some of my stress today.
What did Shannon do now? What did Shannon do now?
Shannon actually is on the nice list today. So that's 17% of my stress today.
It really is wild to think about these things. And then just so the audience knows, you shoot these. Obviously, you log everything that happens.
Yeah.
I always try to tell people, these things, the location you're going to shoot at. The people that are going to be in the scenes. You have to mic them up. But, you might know at this point, Tamra's talked crap about Shannon, so that might come up in a scene. Like, these are not scripted. You might have to do an entrance or an exit. You might have to reshoot that. But these you do not know. You just kind of are able to guess what you're going to get. Those are all logged, and then they start getting whittled down into episodes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So after we have loggers at every shoot, so we'll quickly get field notes, and then the footage is ingested, and the editorial team will start to do string outs, which they'll turn into cuts. So that's really our scorecard every day, and you'll sort of eyeball the notes and see what's going on, and have to always stay on your toes and need to be ready for the incoming call where someone's upset about something. Although I can play.
Do they go to you directly? Like, does Tamra go to you direct? Like, do they all have your phone number? I like Andy the same way. Like, who is the last housewife you texted with today, or Valley person?
So many of them that I can't. Like, I would say today, probably 8 to 10 cast members, but they don't. Some
is it just memes and texts?
Yeah, exactly. You want to see my phone? But no.
By the way, wait. Why couldn't you have done what Salt Lake did and said everybody put their phone in now and read why couldn't the finale say now we read all the worst thing you said about a cast member? That's what I was hoping for in St. Lucia. Do the Salt Lake City, like, just think about it next season.
I won't spoil this, but we have a version of that. But it's a variation of that on OC this season, which is really fun. Yeah, I mean, we have really great teams, so oftentimes the cast doesn't have to go to me, and you know, I sort of encourage them, especially when it comes to production matters, to deal with the production team because they're completely versed in it.
Yeah. So
I won't know all of the ins and outs, but I'll get a breathless call from someone, and they'll think that I was just there shooting them, like, but you know I wasn't there, like, with you, so I don't actually know what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's relationships that are forged over many years, and so it doesn't surprise me that it'll get that outreach.
Over the years that you've worked, have you found yourself having to pull back with personal relationships with cast members because it's like, yeah, we're actually friends, but that might be impeding my work overall? Like, have you had to I always think about this with Andy as well. Do you have to set up roadblocks for yourself? Because it's got to be tempting because these people are really fun to hang out with.
They're great. And I just try to treat everyone fairly. And so I think that you can't do for one person what you don't do for everyone. So I think that can be the challenge. The harder thing for me is people that I know in my personal life that want to do the shows present more of a challenge. And I will tell them, just know if you end up doing this, if we get into business with each other, I can't just be this version of our relationship. I can't just be your friend. So you have to know that going into it. And there will be times when you want to kill me because you may think that I'm not honoring our friendship, and you're right.
Oh, my God. Okay, then we got about 14 more minutes, and I literally have 300 questions. So I want you to promise me something right now. Can we put a stop to cast members having their own podcasts? Can we agree right now that we will put this into
It's an epidemic.
Law?
It makes it so.
No, I mean, I actually genuinely enjoy it, but it is wild. Now, do you make them have podcasts?
No, not at all, and it makes it much more complicated for us. And they all tattle on each other.
Yeah, do you have somebody over at 32 Flavors that is just their job is just to solely listen to their podcast to see what they revealed?
The network does that, and shout out to Jared in New York who does that. And we'll send like recaps of what's in them. And I'm like,
here's what happened in Shenanigans this week.
Yeah. and so we'll get them, but they all, you know, either skirt right up to the boundaries of what they're allowed to reveal or not, or go over, and then they all tell on each other. They're all like, well, but she did this in hers, so I'm not really revealing anything that I shouldn't.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, that, and then just the social media of it all. You know, I mean, there is a fun thing of like on the show night, you know, people will be fighting in text messages, the cast members themselves, but there are rules in place. It's just that sometimes they just they skirt it because they're just big personalities.
Yeah, they just get pissed off.
Do we find them? Can we find them like $50,000? Can we put some like NFL laws into place where you've like abused and like we put them in a timeout? Like we've got to put some rules down.
I'm up for anything that'll work. I remember, by the way, funny story that in Dorit's first season on Beverly Hills, I remember PK got into it over Twitter with someone, and the guy was writing it, and PK, they were going back and forth, and PK was like, you know, I'll come over to your house right now, and we'll talk about this. I'm like, don't do that. It's so funny. It was very funny.
Which, by the way, PK, why didn't you just come to the reunion? You left a statement that was 2 pages long. Like I was like, just go there already.
Yeah, he was a presence.
Who are you the most proud of this season on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills?
I would say probably Dorit. I think that she had a killer season, and I think that she was super forceful and strong. And so I thought it was great. And I think that, you know, she sort of took the turmoil in her personal life and used it to come in hot. So I thought she had a great season.
I wish she had stayed at that heat level all season. I mean, the Kyle thing, I think there's still so much exploration between their relationship, and it got kind of thrown over on Sutton. And Sutton is like not the best effective communicator, which I'm really worried for her next season if she returns without Garcelle there. I'm like, you are going to get stomped, you know? Sorry, I just forgot you actually produced the show, and I'm talking to you like a friend. I'm like, but like it is this weird thing of I really felt for Dorit, but also I was impressed by her strength. But it is this thing also of like finding out in that scene earlier in the season, PK's like, we would fight in front of people all the time. We never saw that on the show. So that was like, we had always speculated about this. Like, sometimes with Beverly Hills, it feels like there's a show behind the show that we're not seeing. And we're seeing a show that they, not you, they want to show us. And it's almost your job to pull that out. And I was wondering in the case of Garcelle, I mean, I felt like she was like a suicide bomber at times, having to bring up, the country singer. Is that something of like the cast has to bring it up for it to include in a storyline, or are there directives that like we would like to bring up Kyle's relationships?
Well, mostly you're trying to draw out of them what they're talking about behind the scenes. So mostly
they're all texting with each other and talking with each other.
Yeah, and then they'll tell us the things they really want to say, or they'll give us updates on each other, and you just want to say to them, well, cool, but we're not in the show. So if that's something that you want to explore, you should bring it up. So there's a lot of that, or there'll be threads they start to pull, and then they stop. And so then, as a production, you will say a reminder, you started this conversation, so why don't you follow up on it? It's that kind of thing, more than anything. But you're right. I mean, we only have what we have on screen. And so I always say to the cast, whenever they're upset about one thing or another, you guys have much more power than we do. Like, you think we do. And everyone refers to the power of the edit. But you know what's more powerful than the edit? The power of actually being there and dictating what it is that we have in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and we really are scrupulous with the edit to try to tell the real story. So we will take heat from some of the cast members about small things that we omitted, because we just have to make decisions, because we have to condense the material down. But by and large, what you see is what you get. It is a pretty faithful version of the story that is the most entertaining, but hopefully also the most compact and impactful.
Yeah. Denise Richards and her Wild Things,
Yeah.
Finale was last night. Very successful season, I think, for something that I didn't really even realize was coming around the bend. How close are we to a second season renewal? And if that doesn't happen, would you consider Denise back on Beverly Hills?
Well, I love Denise, and but I think that the Wild Things was really a great place for her to be. I mean, she'll always have a place on Beverly Hills, and that would be something, certainly to talk about at some point. But I really would love to see a season 2 of that show.
I mean, we had Charlie Sheen on the show. I
How
mean, like,
cool is that?
I was like, what kind of, I'm like, Charlie Sheen shows up all of a sudden, and you forget the history of Denise Richards, and you're just like, this is mind-blowing in a way. Like, it's really ridiculous in a great way.
There's something that's so appealing about her as well, because she's obviously so down to earth, and she's sort of in on it. And even in the Charlie Sheen scene, when she looks right to camera, like, that's great. Like, it's the best. No one breaks the fourth wall quite like Denise.
Well, that was the one of my the bravo effing bravo moment.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm sure people were upset about that, maybe behind the scenes, but it really did almost usher in a new layer of reality TV. Because part of me was like, if you can't, Vanderpump, how are we going to bring back season 12 with the regulars? I was like, do it like just like full blown 360 where you guys are cast members. Like, I want to hear behind the scenes of like, do we bring Tom back? Like, if we're going to like, let's talk about brand deals, like who's fighting over which brand deal. Like, there was a part, if we're going to go there, why not go all the way?
Yeah, it's such a tough balance, because I'm a big proponent of breaking the fourth wall, where I think that it enhances the story or it tells the real story. But I don't like doing it self-consciously. I think if you try to do it, then it's really frustrating, because then you're watching the thing in process instead of watching reality. But I think if you suppress it, that's a problem. And I used to hate, back in the old days when we wouldn't even refer to them reunions, and we would just say, back when we last saw each other, we were all together, and it's like you're cutting to a set, with Andy and at Cousin Andy's house. So, but yeah, Wild Things was really fun. We originally were making it for E, and it landed on Bravo, which was fun.
But I think Bravo was a better home for it as well, and you had so many guest stars from Beverly Hills.
Yeah, which we sort of pulled in throughout, which I think is fun, because I think Denise's version of LA is great.
Are you willing to admit that Kathy Hilton is the world's greatest performance artist?
Oh, I love Kathy. Yeah.
I mean, she like come on, this is like Charlie Chaplin. Like this is, I don't, is that, she's not at that fashion show and standing up and bumping into somebody. Kathy knows what she's doing.
Well, the great
she's
thing
one
with
of the
Kathy
world's
is,
greatest comedians.
She is a great comedian. Is you don't know, so she's a very sharp person, but she also is in her own world. So it's possible.
You have a great shot of part 2 of the reunion. Somebody's rubbing her feet.
Oh,
you have like
so
a
good
shot of the rubbing of the feet. I was like, wow.
She is so good. She will she'll call and she'll just start in the middle of a thought, and it's the best. I love Kathy.
Okay, a couple more minutes, and then you're out of here. I hope this has been okay so far. I work with Jeff Lewis. Where are we on the Flipping Out reboot?
Oh man,
because I believe that's a 32 Flavors production.
We are working together. And
how tough is he to work with? He's a bad seed, right?
He's been really easy. He's been the thing is, you know where you stand, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so he is, and there's no wasted motion, so he's easy from that standpoint. And also look, he knows what makes great television. So
we're doing
fun.
ChumpCon in Vegas this weekend.
I know.
And I was like, this would have been great on Flipping Out. This would be a mess in the best way possible.
Yeah, that is so funny. Yeah, no, love Jeff, and it's fun because I was always a fan of his shows. So it's cool to be able to work with him, and hopefully we get that to series. We'll see.
The Hot Mic podcast, you did an excellent interview with him as well. What can you tease for the audience at large of what is coming around the bend? OC is in production. Beverly Hills is about to wrap up, and we'll probably hear casting news. You've got The Valley season 2 premiering, and that's going to be what it seems like a really intense, fantastic season.
Banner season. We've got Vanderpump waiting in the wings. We talked about Denise. There's a couple more that I would love to talk about that I can't quite break yet.
Could you just give me something? Could you give just something so we can hit the top of the charts? Come on, Alex, please. One thing.
Oh man, I'm bad at this because I just want to give the real news.
I know. We'll talk.
But more to come. There's some series that I'm super excited about. That are in the veins of the ones that we're talking about. Super excited. There's a lot more in the pipeline.
Will you be using Raise Your Glass in the new iteration of Vanderpump Rules?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer yet.
And
do you think we should?
Alex, I've spent so much time thinking about this, which is so sad, but I was like, you've got to in a sense because it is iconic, and we have, we know what we have. We have the Sur alleyway, so we know we need to use that, which, by the way, that should be a historical landmark in West Hollywood at this point. I took my parents to that. We have the theme, and now, yes, it's going to make you sad in a way, so we need to revamp it in a way, but we need Dina Deadly to be a part of it. So there is that element of we need it because this is valuable IP. Like, this is something that, name alone, I would imagine you're going to get advertising rates and viewers immediately in. But then that's going to be the biggest pressure at all, because will you keep them, like you said, between Beverly Hills and Vanderpump? Can you keep them?
I am wagering that we can. I think that it's a great cast, and I think the audience is going to fall in love all over again because we're not chasing our own ghost. So it's going to feel very different, but it's back to the basics. It's a group of people who really work at the restaurant, who are very interconnected, who are in that really fun life phase where a lot happens to them. They make a lot of mistakes, but it doesn't feel as consequential as it does later on in life, which is sort of what happened toward the close of Vanderpump Rules.
Has anybody cheated on each other yet on the show?
Well, we're very early in what we're doing. So,
and by the way, are they watching past seasons of Vanderpump going, oh, I guess I need to cheat to actually make something happen? Like, that's what I imagine, like, the really hard thing is of, like, are we making magic here? And then you have Lisa coming in of, like, behave.
I hope not. I hope that it's mess without self-awareness.
But you have a good feeling.
We have a really good feeling about it, and I'm not just saying that. I'm not anxious because I don't think that we have the ingredients that it takes to make a successful show. I'm anxious because we always feel that pressure, and I think we should feel it, and we have really big shoes to fill.
Well, Mr. Baskin, this has been such truly an honor. I'm not just kissing your ass. Like, I talk about you all the time on the show, and I have been so critical and loving and all of this to the shows over the years, but you provided such amazing entertainment. The one last thing I want to do is, can we do this on Beverly Hills? My dream has always been to be the podcaster voice in the preview of like, breaking news, PK has divorced Dorit. PK has divorced, and then all the headlines pop up. That's if we get something like that. Kyle Richards has potentially left Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I'm just going to say a bunch. Like, Garcelle is coming back to Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. You can use one of those eventually.
We'll put you in the mix.
Okay. Alex Baskin, you guys, I'm going to put all the show notes, podcast, go rate it 5 stars. Just because he's a bigwig doesn't mean he doesn't need the reviews. Subscribe to that podcast. It is excellent. He has the best guests ever. And how else can we support?
Just please watch the shows.
I think we already do that. But anyways, thank you, man.
Thank you.